Hello and welcome to It'll Be Alright in the 90s, the favourite 90s nostalgia podcast of both Darren Eady and Pedro Lamy. I'm Alex Greenwood. Joining me as usual is Stu Jocelyn. How are you, Stu?
Hi, mate. Very well, thank you. I mean, yeah, what a development that was. What a couple of weeks we've had. And let's not forget Ian Marshall as well.
No, I realised
as
I was saying that, I realised I left out the old Marshall himself. For any listeners who don't know what we're talking about, we have had some social media interaction with the Portuguese man of war himself, Pedro Lamy, one of the finest drivers of Formula One history, as well as local to us, football legend and Canary Hall of Famer Darren Eady. Had some really lovely words for us, which we're going to put on the poster.
Absolutely.
Whatever poster that is.
Yes, he took the time to listen to what we were saying and about him, and it was really great to hear from him. So thanks, Darren, if you're still listening in. Fantastic to have you along. We'd love to have you on one day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Ian Marshall, former Premier League footballer, who got a place in your cult.
Yeah, up front.
Part of your attacking side for your 11. He liked something. I think he liked something on Instagram. So thanks for that, Ian.
There we are. We are definitely moving up in the world, I think.
Yeah. So before I go any further, I should say that today's episode is sponsored by Badgerline Buses. So if you want to take a ride on the buses this February, maybe for a day trip to the beach at Weston-super-Mare or the historic city of Bath, or simply as part of your regular commute, quote the code ALLRIGHT90s to the driver, and if you're over 16, you'll only have to pay the cost of a child's fare. And if you're under the age of 16, you'll ride completely free. So hop on the X32 now and enjoy the ride, courtesy of our sponsor, Badgeline Buses.
Thanks very much to the guys at Badgerline for that. Just a point of order here. It used to be, when I used to have to catch the bus to Bath, it was the 231 to get there and the 232 to get back.
Right. Where did all the 231s go? They all just ended up in a scrap heap in Bath.
Exactly, yeah. That must be it. That must be it. There must be a huge bus graveyard somewhere where they, after their final journey into Bath, they they never came back out again. But no, that's brilliant. Thanks to the great guys at Badgerline for that.
I know they've got a fierce rivalry with Fossway, but Badgerline got in there first to get in the sponsorship position. So there you go.
Fossway, blimey, I haven't seen a Fossway bus since the 90s. I mean, there we are.
Well, they became Fairsaver, and then even them I don't think you see anymore. So
no.
Oh well. I believe we have some correspondence. I have a couple of things. I know you do too.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll just do my things quickly. So this relates to the last episode, which was on computer games from 95 to 99, which is a really good episode. We got loads of great correspondence from you, the listeners. But some things came in just a little bit late. So on Instagram, Monty's Kitbad simply said Jonah Lomu rugby and Brian Lara cricket. So a sports game fan there. I've never played any rugby game. I don't know if you have, but
I seem to remember having Jonah Lomu rugby. I think I got given it by a friend or a family member who didn't want it anymore. But I can't remember playing it that much. I'm not really that much of a rugby guy, to be honest, Greenie. So so it sort of passed me by a little bit.
Yeah, something we definitely share in common there. And then on Facebook, Katie Watson said The Curse of Monkey Island and the Big Daddy Grim Fandango, which did get mentioned in the episode itself. But to which the famous comedian Alistair Beckett King, none other, replied saying, Katie is right, stop the count, it's Curse of Monkey Island. Grim Fandango is a classic, but Curse of Monkey Island has aged better. So some celebrity backing for the Curse of Monkey Island there.
Oh, fantastic. And we can add him into the podcast Hall of Fame with Lammy and Marshall and Darren Eady.
Yes, exactly.
Fantastic.
What have you got over there?
So I've got some correspondence from a friend of the pod, Alex Mitchell, and it's regarding the 90s gadgets, which we were discussing on a previous What's the Most 90s. So first of all, he says he remembers desperately wanting a watch remote control when he was a kid. So I think you mentioned the watch calculator.
Yeah.
And the item he sent me here is a Casio wrist remote controller, and it looks like exactly the same exactly the same calculator watch, but with a TV remote control function attached to it. And I seem to remember there being quite a big thing about kids who had these being able to disrupt lessons when the big TV and video had been wheeled in, and then they were able to. Although I never saw that happen myself, so maybe that's a bit of an urban myth. I
definitely remember hearing that as well.
He also says that he was very jealous of his mate's Game Gear that he used to bring into school, although he didn't realise they were made by Sega until now. So this also fits in with the video games as well, I guess, even though it's a gadget as well.
Yeah.
The Sega Game Gear. Did you mention that you had experience of one of these? Because I never have, but I think you might have said that you had a friend or...
Yeah, it's a friend of my brother's had one, and I remember just being around his house very briefly, and he had one, and it seemed really exciting. It was the first time I'd ever played Sonic, and it seemed just crazy to have like a computer game that you could hold in your hand like that, a proper computer game. But that was it. I didn't really know anyone else that had one.
Well, there we are. I mean, my advice for Alex would be, we're all adults with credit cards now, so have at it. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And just one more thing as well. I think it was when you were talking about John Moncur in the 90s 11 episodes when you said about him removing his shirt in the game against Bradford and then costing them a goal.
Yeah.
It reminded Alex of an incident involving his own team, Arsenal. He's a big Arsenal fan. And this comes from a game which appears to have ended Reading 5, Arsenal 7. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there. But Olivier Giroud and Francis Coquelin seemed to be under the impression that Arsenal had won the game on away goals at the end of 90 minutes and went and threw their shirts into the crowd. And when it became clear that they needed to play extra time, they had to go back into the crowd and ask for their shirts back. So there we are. That's some good correspondence there from our man in the field, Alex Mitchell. Thanks for that, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Have you ever thrown your shirt into the crowd?
Do you know, funnily enough, when I played five-a-side last week, there were a couple of lads behind my goal who watched the game. And then at the end of the game, I gave them a little clap and I took my gloves off and I went to throw them to them. But then I realised that I can't really afford to do that sort of thing. So no, my kit has stayed resolutely on.
Yeah. Nice. Glad to hear it. I believe you have got a What's the Most 90s for me.
I do indeed, yes. So what have we done now? We've done football clubs, we've done snack foods, we've done fashion items, we've done, what's the other one that we've done? Help me out.
Did you say cars?
Gadgets,
yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so we're really moving on with What's the Most 90s now, and I'm going back into the comestible arena tonight, and I want to ask you, Greenie, what you think the most 90s alcoholic beverage is. And this is something we have discussed on the pod in passing before, but never really given a solid slot to. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a good question. My first thought was just too much of it. That's the most 90s alcoholic drink. But then I kind of thought I was going to say lager. It seemed like a very lagery decade, and I was thinking maybe Carling Black Label. But then I looked into the history, and Black Label has been around for since the 50s or 60s or something. So sometimes I can forget that something isn't just because I remember it in the 90s doesn't mean that's when it started. So I almost fell down that trap. But I couldn't really get any further. I thought I should do something a bit sort of out of the box, but I just couldn't look beyond Alco Pops. They're so nailed on as the 90s. A lot of them started in the 90s and ended in the 90s, so or shortly after the 90s. So I kind of went for Hooper's Hooch, because it was the most iconic, the naughtiest of the 90s Alco Pops. I couldn't get beyond Alco Pops. What about you?
No, that's a great choice, and of course Hooch still available today widely.
Yeah,
which can also be said for my choice. So I did think back about, I'm not sure if we made this the official drink of the pod, but I did think back to when we discussed Blackadder in a recent episode.
Yeah.
Which is which was the snake bite, half lager, half cider with a dash of blackcurrant that was actually sold in bottles. But I didn't think, quite a niche product, not really well known enough. So I have gone for Caffrey's.
Nice.
Which I enjoyed before Christmas. I stumbled across a 4-pack in a store when I was doing a bit of Christmas shopping, and just that smooth Irish ale taste. Even though I was far too young to drink it then, it really took me back to Euro '96 and and everything that goes with that. So I would highly recommend to all our listeners, if you're ever in a store and you do see some Caffreys available, then definitely get hold of some and yeah, step back in time like I did.
Yeah. I also found something in a store just before Christmas. I think it was in B&M where they just sell random stuff. So I had to buy some because it really makes me think of uni. My friend Aaron and housemate Aaron used to drink Caffreys. That was his uni drink. So I bought some. Then he drank it all before I could even try it. So I didn't get a chance to try it. But I did buy myself some Stones, which is another good old-fashioned sort of
ginger wine.
Bitter. No, not Stone ginger wine. No, Stone's the bitter.
Is that in the orange can?
Yeah, it's like a rugby beer. It always has a rugby. The logo was a rugby player.
Yeah. I think my granddad used to get Stones bitter in that. Yeah, that's my immediate thought when you mention Stones bitter is my gran and granddad's larder. So no, great choice.
Yeah. Do we need to decide what the most do we have to put it down in a letter what the most 90s drink is? Maybe we've been a bit informal about it. It's not like we've been writing it in blood in the ledger, but
true.
Because I don't really want to choose between those two things.
No, I mean there's two different areas. You got your alcopop and you've got your bitter, or your smooth ale. So I think they really have to be treated as two different. Can we admit both?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
Joining us today is a very special guest. She's a professional makeup artist as well as being a fellow 90s aficionado. It's friend of the pod, Kate Pro. Kate, hello. Thanks for coming in. How are you?
Hello. Thank you very much for having me. I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Great, thanks,
I'm good.
Yeah.
I shouldn't speak for Stu there. Yeah.
Well, I'm feeling a bit, to get the old bronchial balsam out again.
No, don't start back on that. It's a new year. It's a new year.
I'm off it. I'm off that stuff. It's fine.
Okay, and so we've got Kate Pro on for a reason, and that is because we're going to be talking about fashion and makeup from the 90s. What was so special about it? What made it stand out? What typified it? Some of our own memories, and we're just going to go through some of those topics and see where it gets us. So my first question, Kate, is what sort of things do you think typified 90s fashion and makeup, and what were the sort of key trends? What were people wearing?
Well, to be honest, when I started thinking about this, I realised I could talk about it for ages, probably another decade. I've got so many memories and nostalgia referring to the 90s. I realised that the emerging theme was accessibility and high street as opposed to anything high end. But owing to the fact we haven't got infinite time, perhaps I should discuss I'm going to discuss the most common things that kind of jumped out at me, the most obvious things. And I thought about getting the maybe more high-end fashion moments out of the way first, because there's less of them.
Yeah.
Great. Yep.
Absolutely. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, well, we're not high-end, so we should get out of the way first.
Then we can bring it back to our end of the scale, yeah.
So straight in with polished and groomed red carpet glam. And what better way to start really, seeing as fashion trends are driven by the catwalk and designers. So firstly, in with Kate Moss, her career launch moment in 1990, when she was photographed on the beach for the Face magazine, which is all about style. And it's where Mossy debuted a feathered headdress. And I mention it specifically because perhaps nowadays, being mindful of cultural appropriation, it gives us an indication of cultural changes over the decade, and perhaps this shoot wouldn't have featured the headdress today, but at the time that marked her supermodel career. I don't know if you remember that image at all.
I don't. I'm going to Google it right now.
She looks so young.
Oh man, yeah, gosh, she does. She's a kid.
Literally.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean Kate Moss, yeah, so 90s.
So 90s. But then I think there were, of course, very famous 90s supermodels: Naomi Campbell, Linda Evangelista, Cindy Crawford, Christy Thurlington. And although I haven't got any distinct memories about them or mentions, I kind of wondered, when thinking about these glamorous and beautifully polished women, how it would have felt to be slightly older in the 90s, in the era, and look up to them for style inspiration rather than, Buffy or Larissa. Moving to red carpet glamour, and I think I must mention Elizabeth Hurley's safety pin dress by Versace. Do you recall this?
I'm Googling it.
Google it.
I think I do, yes.
Yeah. It appeared at the 94 premiere of Four Weddings and a Funeral, and it was black. It was basically just a black dress, sleek black dress with gold pins holding it together. Although that's probably an insult to Versace, but it was super revealing, quite a sensation, and it attracted global interest.
What a 90s couple. What a 90s power couple. Liz Hurley and
Hugh Grant.
Liz Hurley, St Patrick's Primary School of Corsham alumni, lest we forget.
Is she?
Local interest
really?
there. Yeah. That's one of my dad's big things, that he went to the same primary school as Liz Hurley, so there you go.
Oh well, that's perfect then. That's the best mention.
Absolutely brilliant.
I'll close it there.
Okay, thanks very much for coming on.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there we go.
Neither did I.
So I can't mention Versace without talking about Princess Diana. She was often styled by Anna Harvey, and I thought she was quite a classic dresser, always chic, but actually often in Versace. And I've got a little, I guess, I don't know, fun fact of my own. You might not find it fun, but my old neighbour is actually the sculptor for the royal family, and he's very talented. And Harry and William commissioned him to make the bronze statue of Diana recently. I don't know if you saw any press coverage of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some actually criticised the statue, but I think it did capture Diana in her most practical and utilitarian wear, and I think she spent a lot of time working with charities in the field, so I thought it was actually quite an appropriate statue. But that is literally that. They are all my high-end references. Those are the things that jumped out at me. And now to get to the fun parts, that's all the memories of fashion, makeup, and culture for your everyday 90s soul growing up.
Real.
So no particular order, that's us. Starting with makeup. So honestly, to me, the 90s makeup trends are the most memorable are light pastel shadows, blue or violet hues on the eyes, or pretty glitter lids. But actually, most of the time outlined, or you call it tight lined, where you outline the whole eye in a black liner. The eyebrows of today are quite big and fluffy, big and groomed, which is the direct opposite of the skinny, barely there eyebrows of the 90s. Do you have any sort of memories of makeup of the time?
Well, as you know, I'm still an avid watcher of Dawson's Creek, and the earlier series of that, there's some examples of that sort of makeup, the pastel eye makeup, and I think what you say about eyebrows, I can think more about how that relates to now. Like you say, people having big, proud eyebrows, like is it Carla Delevingne or Cara Delevingne? She's an eyebrow woman, isn't she?
Yeah.
I think of her like being a bit of an eyebrow icon, but so yeah, I can see how that's changed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the style was very overplucked, so not too overdone, which I think then emphasised the eye trends, or the iconic coffee or heather shimmer lipstick, and that's something we all wanted, had, or snuck into school. We all did. It was just so popular. But I do think today's overlined lips, so you can overline your lips to make them look bigger or contour them, so darker colour around the edge and lighter in the inside. And I think that's definitely taken its inspiration from the 90s pout, which was of course always covered and sealed with lip coat. It was like this, I don't know what it was, I don't know what was in it, but like a sealant basically for your lips. It's not good.
You could use it on the bathroom as well. It'd probably be banned.
Probably. Not cool. And then lastly, there was also like a more berry deep hue popular in the 90s that you can find an example of on Nancy, which was the character from the amazing witch film of 96, The Craft. A very deep berry shade, which was popular. But we can't really talk about trends, I don't think, without talking about hair. So especially being at school in the 90s, particularly our male classmates with their wet look crispy gel spikes, sometimes with frosted tips.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I use wet look hair gel, but only on the front, just to gel up the front. and that was it. For a long time, I just didn't do it. So it was kind of too fluffy at the back and clearly, washed, and then just wet look on the front. I don't know why I did that for so long. I guess all I cared about was having the front stuck up, so I didn't really care about how the overall look was. So that makes me cringe a bit.
Yeah, you took direct inspiration from Cameron Diaz.
Yeah, basically.
Watch the film.
I think in about 1996 or 7, when he had really burst onto the scene, I think David Beckham signed a deal with Brill Cream, and before that, Brill Cream had been it was a product that older men used. My granddad had a pot, for instance. I recall. But with David Beckham then coming in and being an ambassador for the brand, it really, really repositions itself as something that a young person would use. And then that's my memory of the whole wet look thing is the David Beckham Brill Cream boom. Try saying that when you've had a couple. And then suddenly, as you say, it was everywhere, literally. So there we go. Thanks, Bex.
Yeah, that's interesting because gel did feature heavily in the 90s, so perhaps we do owe all of that to David Beckham. Who knows?
There's Ross from Friends as well. He was a big wet look because Rachel's dad calls him Wethead, doesn't she? Doesn't he at some point? It's like they refer to the fact that he looks like he's got wet hair all the time. I was just going to say frosted tips. I remember them definitely. I never had them, but I definitely remember them.
That's like the Westlife thing, isn't it? Right? That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. It's like the edgier member of a boy band would have the frosted tips.
Yes,
because I bleach my hair now. When I get it cut, I accidentally have frosted tips, so I have to then bleach it again straight away. I don't know what I'm going to do when I stop bleaching it because I'm going to have to live with frosted tips for 3 months or something.
An appointment with Will, the official barber of the pod. I'm sure we'll be able to help you sort that out, mate.
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah.
Well, you could bring back another style from the 90s, which were curtains, perhaps.
Now we're talking.
God. Frosted curtains. Imagine that. It'd be awful.
Brilliant.
Ben from A1 even, which I know, Stu, you went through a phase of modelling yourself on earlier in the pod history.
Big style icon for me last summer, Ben from A1, absolutely. And if we're going to mention Westlife again, of course, Brian from Westlife, I think, was the big curtain guy there.
Yeah.
I've never really sort of got my head around that one, to be honest. Why? I mean, I suppose you can look back on many fashions and think, how did anybody ever think that looked good? But curtains is definitely one of those for me. Yeah, very, very bizarre. But there we are. I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, exactly. And I think making these kind of, I don't know if fashion mistakes is the wrong word, but kind of bold fashion statements that you look back on and cringe. So I think that's part of growing up, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh,
definitely. Yeah.
But curtains are back actually to an extent, but I think today's it's a bit more messy and a bit more undone. It's a bit cooler.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Friends, so you mentioned Ross when we were talking about gel, but everybody went to the hairdresser women mainly, and asked for a Rachel. So quite a choppy layered look. That was such a massive thing. Everyone asking for a Rachel. Do you remember that look at all?
Definitely,
Yeah. That's a big one, I think.
Iconic haircut of the 90s. Maybe
possibly
the most
the
90s.
Most, perhaps should have led with that. But another screen look is Uma Thurman's Bob in Pulp Fiction. I recreated that look in Lockdown 1, which I loved.
The look or Lockdown 1?
Oh, both. The look, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it looked great.
Do you remember a product called Sun In?
Yes. Yeah. I bought a couple of bottles of that over the years.
Yeah.
I was never allowed. I was always banned from doing so, but there we are.
Oh, I think your parents did your hair a favour.
I wonder if you can still get hold of some on eBay. What do we
You know what? That is
dangerous.
Probably melted through the bottles by now, I would have thought.
What was in it? And can you still get it? I don't know.
I can still smell it. I can remember what it smelled like clearly.
Yeah. 11.49, brand new, lemon fresh, tropical breeze. Is it hair? Is it hair lightener or air freshener? What is it?
Bit of both. That was a great thing about it.
Yeah, I think I'll leave that in any case.
Yeah, definitely.
But your parent, you don't have to listen to your parents anymore, Stu.
That's true. That's true. I'm 33 years old. I can do what I like. Yeah.
Oh no.
All right, maybe
I spent such a long time with yellow locks in the 90s, thanks to Sunny.
All right, okay, all right. I'll sleep on it. Sleep on it at least.
Scrunchies also featured, but these have come back specifically for curly girls who like to plop their hair and make it more curly. But I guess another hair crime was perhaps crimping. Yeah, probably okay in the short term, but not every day if you wanted your hair to survive. But I immediately thought of Christina Aguilera in the Dirty video, but I realised that was the noughties, so a bit of a cheat there.
There we go. We can edit that out, no problem.
Bleep
Get
it.
rid of it.
Bleep it.
But perhaps a less damaging but equally standout hairstyle was the Gwen Stefani hair twists. Also botched by Cameron Diaz and of course Mel B. So like aliens, I don't know what else you'd call them, space buns type look.
Like the walnut whip type thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, they were really popular. And actually, Stu, I've mentioned your wife here because your wife remembers butterfly clips.
That's right, yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we used to pull our hair at the front into sort of small sections and clip it back with these butterfly clips along the top.
Okay.
But that also reminded me of black wiry Alice bands that you could wear in your hair. It would kind of scrape it all back.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sums up all the hair chat. Oh, Alex,
there we go.
This is my Alice band.
His own
Or my
Alice
Alex band, as I call it. I can't put it on because I've got my headphones on. But
Oh, that's very nice, Alex.
Alex Band is the lead singer of The Calling, isn't he?
is it?
Yeah, I do think it is actually.
Okay.
So moving on to fashion, did you ever wear flares?
No.
No, not myself. No, but
okay.
very popular in sort of year 9 and 10 at Caution School when I was there, definitely.
There you go. Yeah, my school friends and I definitely wore massive flares. I've put in year 7 in my notes, which does correspond to the year 97. But we would be found loitering on the bus stop, coming home from town in the rain. But the flares were so big, the ground would soak up all of the water. They were so miserable to wear, but we obviously thought they looked great at the time.
It's weird, isn't it? Because that must be flares, obviously a sort of 60s thing, or 60s, early 70s. So in the 90s, I'm guessing that was a callback to that period, but only the flares bit of it. Is it? I don't know. There's not much else about 90s fashion, particularly 60s, is there?
Nah, I mean, it was flared jeans, so yeah, definitely. I mean, I never partook myself, but there we go. Yeah. I missed out again, I think.
I can definitely picture the sort of capillary action of people stood in puddles in wet up to their knees. It's kind of fascinating from a just pure sort of scientific level. But
you're there with your PH paper.
Yeah.
So do you remember trouser skirts? I loved mine, but I don't know why. Because I mean, it's just an odd thing, isn't it? Trousers
I can't picture it
on top.
It sounds like a trousers.
Oh, I see. So it's like a one. Yeah. It's one garment. Yes. Right, I've got it.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
No, that doesn't ring any bells.
No, blimey.
I'm googling it.
You googled it. I thought they were massive. Perhaps it was just me, and I really was just uncool.
I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, some of these pictures are making me think of it. It's a little bit Dawson's Creek. There's some. There's a screen grab from Steps, the pop band Steps, wearing some here. So
there we go.
Well, if it was good enough for Steps.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
There's a catchphrase of the pod. Being birthed before our very eyes.
This is a strange mention, but do you remember those candy dummy necklaces that everyone seemed to have? Really random, but it was a fashion trend.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Was that kind of associated a bit with raving, maybe? Or maybe I'm getting mixed up with whistles there?
Oh, well, possibly, actually.
I can picture it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And yo-yos.
Yes.
Not strictly a fashion item, but they were a 90s classic, and we did all have them.
Yeah, that was a big.
Very much so.
Massive accessory, I think. The same as Tamagotchis. We all had one hanging from our jean loops, I think, Tamagotchis. So I've added them into it, kind of strange accessories. And then kind of school age memories. Do you remember Spliffy jeans?
Yes. Yeah. Well, the brand, yeah.
Yeah. I remember as a teen wanting some really badly. Unlike you with Sun in, Stu, my parents wouldn't let me have any. I think presumably the person was smoking a joint on the jeans, but I'm not really sure. It's a hazy memory.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right. But maybe our parents had it right all along, you know, when you look back on these things.
But there was an abundance of sweaters as well in the 90s, it seems, from Fruit of the Loom to Sweater Shop.
Mm-hmm.
Naff Naff.
Naff.
Remember that? Yeah. But it just takes me back to school memories. So I'm thinking back now to footwear. And we all had or wanted to have a pair of kickers as our playground stomping choice. Did you have kickers? What did you wear?
I think I was probably just wearing Clark's own brand, to be honest. But I do remember kickers and people having kickers jumpers and stuff as well.
Yeah,
big brand.
Bags as well.
I'm gonna picture a pair of kickers now, sort of chunky and
Mm-hmm. I mean, the in thing when I was sort of late primary school was the Clark's sort of school shoe. That brand was Bootleg. That was the big. Yeah, you had to have the old bootleg shoes, and I had a couple of pairs of those.
Okay.
Seem to recall, but yeah, it was like a sort of in-house, school shoe brand.
Their sort of trainers were called Seeker, weren't they? The Clark's trainer brand was Seeker. I had a few of them.
Yeah, Ball Boys trainers. Have we spoken about this before?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Okay, so Ball Boys were. This might have been a Clark's thing as well. I don't know, but. It was they were sort of aimed at the footballing child, and I remember two things. There was, first of all, it was you could get a set of shin pads signed by Alan Hansen free with each pair. Obviously not signed by him, just printed on. Yeah. And then later on they had Gareth Southgate with like a Gareth Southgate signed football, but in the advert. When they announced the tie-up with Gareth Southgate, they used him taking the penalty against Germany in the semi-final of the Euros in the advert and cut it as he strikes the ball, so you don't see it get saved, and you don't see which always struck me as a bit odd. Then they had the little lights in the heel as well. So sorry, I've hijacked things a bit there, but
was that the advert where they referred to him? It said. As endorsed by Gareth Southgate, the champion of the England football team.
Possibly.
I remember that odd wording. What does that mean? Champion of the England football squad. They didn't win anything.
He's the best one.
Yeah, it makes it sound like he just championed them, like in the press and stuff. But
playing for Villa at the time, Alex. Come on, he's got to be the best one, hasn't he? He's got to be the champion of the England team.
Wow, he's no Daryl Sutch, is he?
No.
Sorry.
So I'll move on to we used to adorn our coats and bags with little badges bought from Park Street's Federation store. Did you ever do this? Like just tons and tons of little badges. All the girls at my school had Jane Norman bags, in particular my sister's year. She's 2 years younger than me. That stands out. And kickers bags as well, as you mentioned, Alex. But do you remember the bags that couldn't be adorned with badges, the inflatable bubble bags? Do you remember those?
Yes.
So silly.
Yeah, and this is around the same time as the inflatable furniture as well.
Yeah.
When that really came in. Yeah. So but never had an inflatable bag, sadly. A Shaun the Sheep rucksack as well. I seem to remember that being huge as well at the time.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I was going to put my mention of my own Shaun the Sheep backpack in, and I thought no, that's just not cool enough. But
there we are. We're on the same lines, obviously.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was that memorable, if it was just me, but maybe it was a big thing. But I think there are some 90s memories that have been around before, and as my nan would say, have done a turn. Mm-hmm. So, like jelly shoes. I feel like they kind of crop up in every era. They always make an appearance. Fringes, so bangs. And to be honest, jackets, so both leather and denim jackets seem to always come around, but the styling changes through the eras, I think. Animal print, obviously, in particular leopard print from the 90s, which I guess, we all think of Mel B when we think of leopard print and her tattoos.
Yeah.
Do you remember the big, bold red, white and blue Tommy Hilfiger jackets?
Yeah.
Alex actually or both of you, Alex and Stu, you posted on your, I think it was on your Facebook page, a picture. Oh gosh, who was it now in the picture? All dressed in Tommy Hilfiger.
I think it's Destiny's Child, isn't it?
I can't remember that.
Or All Saints. I picture All Saints wearing a lot of Tommy Hilfiger stuff.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
They were like the cool girl band of the era, weren't they?
They were.
Yeah.
It was.
They certainly were decked out in it when we watched the Top of the Pops '98 Christmas special recently, weren't they? So
yeah, that's true.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's such a bold look. I think. I just think all the colours are so striking. But there was some controversy around Tommy Hilfiger in the 90s, because it was reported that he'd said, if I knew minorities were going to wear my clothes, I wouldn't have made them. But that was refuted. So there we go.
I bet it was.
Wow. Yeah.
I bet it was refuted when that came out.
It's terrible, isn't it? So
yeah, that's. Oh, crikey, yeah.
Not
well, I'm
good.
glad I don't own any of.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah,
Me
same.
too.
And then back to footwear, Buffaloes. I think they need their whole own little space. And I think they did come back to haunt us when the Spice Girls toured again.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the Buffalo brand jumped on that, but they were just so cool, I think. And then on to sneakers. So sneaker fans, rejoice. It's 1990 and Nike have launched their Air Max 90s, which is my favourite trainer, with awesome colourways. And I think if Bristol was a shoe, it would be an Air Max 90. Did you like those?
Yeah, big fan. Yeah.
Yeah. I never had. I did have some pairs of Nikes. I don't think I ever had 90s, but they've never really gone away since, have they? I don't think.
No.
I'm partial to an Air Jordan myself, but
yeah. See, actually, I don't know, something controversial to say. I'm not the biggest Air Jordan fan.
Okay, that's not controversial. That's fine. This is an open forum, you know.
That's so rude of me.
Tension on the pod.
Yeah,
come on here, argue with the hosts. Unbelievable.
And I have put in my notes that it's controversial that I'm not a fan. I don't know why. I don't know. I've never got into them. But they've got longevity, haven't they? They're so popular.
Indeed, yeah.
You're cool, Stu. I'm in the minority for not liking them.
I have no great affection or affinity for Nike. I'm more of a Vans or a Etnies sort of guy now. So if Vans or Etnies are listening, then please do
send you some
sponsor the pod.
Yeah, please do.
Just dropped your name heavily there, so
we'd be quite happy to have a real sponsor. That'd be
yeah.
Right, I'm going to move on to accessories now, and I think some of these have made a resurgence, but the choker being one, and then my younger cousins, they're very fashionable, and the jewelry that they wear screams 90s to me. So it's sort of rope necklaces with kind of dolphins or other silverware attached. That was all very popular in the 90s. For me, the silverware on my rope necklace was a pentacle, because me and my friends loved a bit of witchcraft. And I instantly associated mood rings to the 90s as well. But do you remember shag bands?
Yes, I mean, Stu chose them for.
Oh,
that was your answer, Stu, for the most. What's the most 90s
fashion accessory? Yes, so, yeah. That's right.
So
I think you're absolutely right. But what was that about?
No idea. I mean, it has to have been a local thing. I don't know, because I've never heard it mentioned by anybody I know who isn't from around here. But yeah, it was. So again, for anybody who didn't hear the previous episode, so the mythology around the shag band was that if you broke somebody else's shag band, that was who you were going to pair up with, shall we say. And that was it, and that went on for a couple of years and then went away. But yeah, it was thinking back to it, it was bizarre thing for 8 or 9 year olds to be doing. I don't know. Remember them well.
And then just a tiny little mention of nails, because I guess that is an accessory, I suppose. But I think, again, like glitter eyes, glitter nails were a thing. But I did wonder when the French tip came in. So, like the neutral nail with the white tip on the end.
Yeah.
I thought that might be more noughties.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, right at the end of the decade, maybe.
Yeah. And then my other bits to throw in is about scent. So I don't think fashion's complete, really, without scent. So after carrying out a bit of market research, I think the scents of the 90s are probably White Musk by The Body Shop, which was launched in 81, but it's still going strong. It's just got a more sustainable overcoat now in its packaging. And I think it smells exactly as it sounds. And then there were also popular body sprays, so Impulse and Charlie. Charlie Red was my favourite, but for the life of me, I cannot remember how it smells. But I personally, it's a bit of a dig to myself, I massively overdid Tommy Girl perfume. Oh no, I do have a Tommy Hilfiger reference.
Tip it down the sink. Down the sink.
I definitely wouldn't wear it now, but
yeah, it's got to go.
I just wore far too much of it, So I've put in an apology to anyone that was in the building because it was just so strong. But actually, I didn't know of any cheaper male school days kind of scents, so I just wondered if you had any that stood out, because I didn't know any.
Well, for me, and it was all Lynx. That's what everyone had at school. 100%. It was Lynx and
Lynx Africa.
Yeah, I remember when Africa came out, it was like the new one that everyone wanted. Before that, it was Java and oh god, what were the other ones called? There were like 2 or 3.
Oh yeah, now
and then Africa came out, and that was the big one. And
there was one that had a planet on it, which was my favourite, but I can't remember what it was called.
That's right. Yeah. You'd open the door to the PE change rooms, it'd be like a cloud would come out of this stuff. You couldn't have a naked flame in there, Christ.
Or the Brill cream as well. No.
Yeah, you'd literally taste it when you went in, because it just. If I smell that again now, it'd probably give me palpitations. Just thinking.
I've got a can of Africa on the go at the moment, as it happens.
Okay, it's a good thing we're recording this over.
Keeping it 90s.
Well, that's from the that's from the Christmas Christmas smellies haul. So which I seem to get every year as a man of a certain age. So yeah, there we go. It's still going strong in the Joslin household.
Yeah, I think I probably would like the smell because it would be so nostalgic. But yeah, I think a lot of memories would come back. I should get some just for
definitely. It's interesting, isn't it? Smells and memories and music and memories, how closely linked they are.
I should have a sniff before every recording of the episode of the pod, and then get me in the mood.
A quick belt of hooch, and then we're off to the races.
Yeah.
One last thing, just tattoos. I just think you can't really mention an era without talking about the tattoos of the time. And I wondered if tribal tattoos came of age in the 90s. I think I'm right. That's my feeling, but I'm not 100% sure. So actually, I looked it up, but I couldn't find any information on tribal tattoos. But I did find, and I can't believe I forgot this, the barbed wire tattoo on wrapping Pamela Anderson's upper arm.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah,
classic,
of course.
Isn't it?
I think the barbed wire tattoo lead to the film Barbed Wire, or did the tattoo come after the film, or was it not a real tattoo and it was just for the film or something, or was it just a coincidence that she did a film called Barbed Wire and had the barbed wire tattoo?
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was a real tattoo. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, but no, it might be just that film. I remember that film coming out and being like, oh, it's Pamela Anderson, everyone's supposed to fancy her because it's Pamela Anderson, like real 90s pin-up.
Yeah.
I feel like at this juncture I have to mention Mel C's chain tattoo around one of her arms.
Oh, of course.
Which is the first one that I really sort of noticed, and I remember there being in Top of the Pops magazine at their height, one of the issues came with a free stick-on Mel C chain tattoo, which you could wrap around the old arm and get it there. So yeah, I feel like I have to give that a mention as well.
But she also had that big Celtic cross kind of design.
That's right. Yeah.
Arm, didn't she? Yeah.
I think she had the chain first, I seem to recall, and then the rest followed. Because she went a bit punk, didn't she? After the Spice Girls split up.
Yeah.
And all sort of tartan skirts and bleached hair and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Started knocking about with Bryan Adams. Went off the rails a bit.
Okay, so Kate, you're a fan of the pod. So you know that we love our, we love our defunct businesses and stores that we love to talk about on the pod. So we were wondering, what were the sort of on-trend stores, high street stores at the time that maybe sadly aren't with us anymore? I mean, for my money, I recall a lot of my female friends when I was at primary school and early years of secondary school did a lot of their shopping at Tammy, for instance.
Yeah.
Sadly missed. So are there any other examples of these ones that have gone by the wayside?
Well, in Bristol there was a shop called Onyx, which was a music shop, but in the middle was a round rack that displayed all the band hoodies you could want, or as my sister remembered them, your emo hoodies.
Nice.
Very kindly. My personal choices were an M&M and a Limp Bizkit hoodie.
You're speaking my language.
Yeah. You're both music connoisseurs. Did you participate in a band tee or hoodie moment of the 90s?
I definitely did, yeah. I remember getting a Limp Bizkit hoodie from Camden Market, which I still have.
Cool.
I think still have at my parents' house somewhere. And this
Yeah.
one.
I was just going to say, you've got
Of
a
course.
Death Row Records one on, haven't you? Yeah, that's cool.
I survived most of my GCSE years wearing a green and yellow Stereophonics jacket, which I bought at Bristol Academy, which was my first ever gig. In early 2003. I know we're stepping out of the 90s again, but it's the same sort of vibe. And yeah, that was I think I wore it well into sixth form as well. And again, it is still around. So maybe I'll have to dig that out again. But yeah, definitely the old band merchandise played a big part.
Yeah, it was very popular. And then Burton Menswear. I don't know if you ever shopped there. It was one of the only men's shops I could think of. Ben Sherman, I knew was a thing in the 90s. But Bay Trading, that was a particular favourite of mine. Morgan, Kukai, Jane Norman. Tammy Girl felt like, as you said, the coolest shop ever as a kid because it had a sticker photo booth. I don't know if you ever ventured into Tammy Girl.
I don't think I did, but that sounds interesting. A sticker photo booth. So presumably a photo booth that prints stickers, correct?
Yeah, it was worth it just for that. But pure nostalgia, I suppose. It reminds me of heading to town with my mum and sister. And we'd have a milkshake on the top floor of Debenhams. And do you remember Debenhams had the talking tree?
I don't remember that, no.
Do you not?
No, I remember the escalators and the sports section upstairs. That's all I really remember. What do you mean the talking tree?
You've really missed out.
What do you mean the talking tree? You can't just move on just because I can't remember it. Explain it.
Well, it was literally, it was a talking tree, Alex. What more do you want from me?
It sounds like the sort of thing you start to see because you've had too much milkshake on the top floor.
Well, possibly that might explain it. So it was an animated tree. You're going to have to Google it. It was definitely a thing.
Do you think it was just in the Bristol branch or was it a national thing?
Possibly.
I'm going to type
this is the water wheel at the front of Chippenham Library all over again.
It's another mystery.
Yeah,
brought into the pod. I'm going to type in talking tree Debenhams and see. It's probably going to set off some alarm somewhere in the psychiatric unit of.
To be honest, Alex, I can't really remember what it said. I just knew it said something.
I think, there's a couple of things have come up.
This is what Marconi had in mind, ladies and gentlemen.
I missed the talking tree in Mothercare. Maybe they were just in different areas. Like every shop, different shops would have them. But
maybe it was Mothercare, not Debenhams.
Well, if you listener have heard or have any idea what Kate's talking about, let us know and we'll try and nip this mystery in the bud. As it were. That was an unintended pun. Very good.
But no, those were my only stores actually. But I think Debenhams was the biggest one, I guess, at the time. And CNA, but
I don't know.
I have less fond memories of that.
Can I throw one into the mix here? I mean, I'm not sure. It might still be about. I don't know. But Blue Banana, was that a thing? But that was more like piercings and stuff.
Yeah, there's still a Blue Banana in Bristol. So
okay, right.
Could well have started in the 90s, but still going.
Okay.
Burton Menswear was one that when you said that I came back, I definitely think for the later 90s, that's where I started to get my stuff on. I started to become a bit more conscious of what I was wearing. But so that doesn't exist anymore, does it? Because I think Burton was still getting sold in Debenhams just before Debenhams shut down. Well, the one in Bristol anyway. Well, they've all shut down, haven't they? So I think Burton maybe must have gone into other stores but not had their own shops or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
the Burton store in Chippenham, which had been there for about 100 years, now sells discount beds. So there you go.
Oh,
Very,
right,
There
okay.
we go.
very, very, very sad. And another institution goes to the wall.
Yeah.
That's right.
Who we've talked about a few of them, like a lot of them have been name checked already, but what celebrities do you think represented the era? Like we've got Jennifer Aniston, we've got Pamela Anderson, Kate Moss. Who else do you reckon?
I wondered if you'd let me break this section down into kind of subgenres, like TV, film. That's how it came to
Yeah.
me in my mind. Is that
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah, go
Do
for
I
it.
have permission? Okay, thank you. So, do you remember the clothes show?
Yes.
Yeah,
My mum
absolutely.
used
Yeah.
to watch that.
Yeah, airing on BBC. For those that don't know, Jeff Banks, whose wares could be found in Debenham to the left of the talking tree, and I think her name was Karen Franklin, hosted this show. We loved it. We absolutely loved it in our house.
Yeah. And
It
I
was
definitely
just,
remember my mum watching it in the sort of mid-90s. I
Yeah,
can
I can't-
picture the main presenter.
And I can remember the theme tune very, very clearly as well. But
yeah,
I mean, it must have been off TV for, blimey, 25 years now, I guess, something like that. It's not been
must
on
have
for a long
been.
time, has it?
No, yeah,
Yeah.
it must have been. We would have taken inspiration at some point from the clothes show, probably. And I guess representation across the pond. Sex and the City aired in '98. I mean, that was fashion forward and outrageous at the time. And I just think worthy of a mention. It was kind of that high end fashion that, I don't know, Sarah Jessica Parker in her tutu type outfit. I think yeah, she was definitely one of the celebrities I would pick. For men's fashion, I think you've got bright and funky prints for the bold types, popularised by Will Smith in his character in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So I think that's a big one to go up there. And bum bags. He loved a bum bag, didn't he? So Alex, I know you're an avid hip hop fan, and you make a good hip hop mixtape. But obviously Tupac and Biggie both shot in the '90s. And actually, I think they were kind of iconic dressers of the time. They made Timberland boots famous with the iconic camel colorway, paired with a pair of massive dungarees.
Yeah. Tupac was super cool in what he wore, especially earlier on in his career. He was awesome.
And then our Spice Girls. You definitely can't talk about the '90s without talking about the Spice Girls. And I just think there's so many fashion moments you can talk about. But one of the most iconic dresses of the '90s, '97, Jerry Halliwell's Union Jack dress. So I think, Jerry, well, all the Spice Girls, but she was ahead of the game. She upcycled a tea towel and rocked it to the Brit Awards with these massive bright red platforms. I just think that was arguably one of the most copied fashion moments of the '90s, in my opinion. I don't know if you'd agree.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
Well, I certainly tried it. Yeah.
I'll never forget that mufti day at Caution School. Blimey. I didn't realize. Yeah, I didn't realize that was a tea towel that she upcycled.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Apparently so.
Right.
Obviously, Liam and Noel Gallagher. For me, they kind of stand out in driving the kind of casuals culture, their mullets and their Parker jackets. For those not a stranger to a Fred Perry polo. Yeah, and then bucket hats.
Fred Perry.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the rest in peace Fred Perry polos. They've been co-opted and ruined by the Proud Boys.
Yes.
Specifically the black and yellow ones, which are now completely off limits because of them.
Totally, yeah, absolutely. And I think moving into film, so one of the most famous films, and actually, so from '95, Clueless. And so Mona May was the costume designer for that film, and she's pulled a blinder because absolutely everyone I've spoken to about '90s fashion quotes Clueless. So, oh gosh, I've forgotten the woman's name who plays Cher, the character.
Alicia Silverstone.
That's the one. Thank you. Which everybody copied. So I think, massively influential. I'm keeping it American. So American sitcoms, Clarissa Explains It All, I think she was up there for fashion trends because she would wear them all at the same time. Literally, everything clashed or worked. She'd kind of put together all kinds of different spots, but it would all work really well. So a friend of mine actually mentioned velvet hats from the show Blossom. This is not something I remembered. Do you remember these?
No, I can't say I do.
They reminded me of bucket hats from the 90s, but with a massive flower in the centre.
Yeah, I think I kind of know what you mean. Makes me think of Joey from Dawson's Creek.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry to keep coming back to Dawson's Creek.
Well, Dawson's Creek celebrity must be in there as the reference points. And Sarah Michelle Gellar, I've put on my list as well. In Buffy, I just thought she was cool. I thought she was kind of quite chic, and I loved her little black dresses. And maybe it was just me, but I know Buffy was a really popular series. But I think surely she's got to be up there as somebody we all copied. And she had this amazing red leather jacket, which I always wanted. The world was kind of a smaller place in the 90s, I think, wasn't it? We kind of had less reference points. We didn't all have Instagram in our pocket and people from all over the world. It was kind of a much smaller world. So I think, but I wonder if that's why we all remember the 90s so fondly.
Well, you've given us such a great rundown of all of the fashion points of the 90s so far, but what I'd like to ask is if you could select one of these, or maybe you haven't come to this yet, but is there any particular low point of the decade in fashion, which you could identify as one that we should never repeat and probably never should have gone to in the first place?
Yes, I wasn't sure what to say about this, first of all, but actually I'm going to get serious for a second. Obviously, I referenced Kate Moss earlier, and it's long documented that the 90s is synonymous with the waif look or heroin chic. And actually, I think that is pretty damaging as a legacy. So it's less of an item and more of a culture, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought this was really sad. I was discussing the 90s with my friend, and she described remembering crop tops and associating this era with and such kind of fashion ideals around women's bodies and hating her body, which I think is a really terrible legacy of the 90s. And I just wondered if anyone else felt that way. So it's more of the culture, I think, to leave behind from the 90s rather than any item.
Totally agreed. I'd never thought about it in that way before, but when you said it out like that, it's very difficult to disagree. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think of those models you named. Yeah, they do all have that in common, don't they? That super skinny look. So yeah, it's a good thing we've seemingly moved on from that somewhat. I guess the world of fashion is far from perfect, but we do seem to have at least got beyond that a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obviously not kind of disparaging anyone's slim bodies, but it's just the way the culture was at kind of picking at women, I suppose. And I don't know, for her to say that she felt that way, I just thought was terrible. And I was like, that has to be the legacy to leave behind.
Yeah.
I don't know, did you watch that Spice Girls documentary?
Yes.
Recently,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
The kind of shit they had. Oh gosh, I've just sworn on the pod. Is that allowed?
We'll allow
That's
it. It's fine.
God, I've done so well so far. It's my potty mouth. The kind of shit that they had to put up with in interviews and things. It's just, the culture, 90s culture, which I know is kind of a cop out because it's not a thing, but that's what I'm going to put in room 101.
Yeah.
Is that the right expression? Room 101? Yeah. There we go.
Okay, that and sun in. What do you think? What do we think influenced 90s fashion? Because we can see that 90s fashion is very much popular now, but so that's influencing today's fashion. But where did 90s fashion come from? Do you think?
I think I've mentioned that I think the world was a bit smaller in the 90s. So I think because life was slightly different, and you couldn't get kind of access to information readily. You kind of you needed to wait for your computer to turn on and warm up and then dial up if you wanted to kind of look anything up. But so I kind of think the references were all general and mainstream. So I think it was just TV, film. What I have put down is music videos. I really think music videos were probably kind of taking off in the 90s, and perhaps I think kind of TV and, you know, kind of obvious routes, whereas today it's probably fashion is a bit less obvious. And I don't know, there's kind of more styles, I think, now, if you see what I mean. There's always been genres of people, haven't there, if you know what I mean, like a goth or a you know, whatever, sporty kind of person. But I think the 90s was a bit more obvious, and we all kind of followed the same trends a bit more than we would nowadays, perhaps.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I think we're going to wrap up now. We've got one final question to ask, which we ask all of our guests. What one thing from the 90s, and obviously fashion or otherwise, this can just be a general thing from your experience in the 90s, if you wish. What one thing from the 90s would you like to bring back? Would you like to see come back into fashion, as it were?
I wouldn't bring back a fashion. I think fashion does its own thing at bringing itself back around. I would bring back a computer game. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do that and jump out of my own.
Of course.
Yeah,
please carry on. Please.
Context.
Please do.
In your other pod, you mentioned Abe's Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just remembered, like, oh yes, that was so good. I'd completely forgotten about it until you mentioned it. And that's what I want to bring back. I never completed it. I would love to complete it. It was so good. That, or do you remember Super Frog?
Yeah, I remember Super Frog on
Just on the computer.
Yeah.
I'd love to bring that back. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not bringing, because, you know, fashion comes around all the time. You can put on a contoured lip and look like you're from the 90s now, but they need to come back.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think they're both long overdue a reboot. You know, it's obviously popular for films to be rebooted, and occasionally games get it. So I think Abe's Odyssey or Abe's Exodus, I think, was a sequel. Both, let's have them back. Okay, we do have a bit of correspondence on this subject, and we'll go through it while you're here, Kate, just so you can give your thoughts on it. So yeah, on our Instagram, we got contacted by Bristol Saint Vintage, which is our friend Lynn Bennett behind the scenes. But it's a great vintage online clothes shop, so you should check that out. But yes, Bristol Saint Vintage said, my first thought was the poppered Reebok joggers, which she owned in 97 or 98, which a certain someone, her sister, decided to rip all the way open on both legs whilst we were at the supermarket one day. But there's so much more she could say about 90s fashion, but she's gonna save it and listen to the show. So thanks for that, Lynn, for getting.
I just got to jump in here and tell you about my favourite outfit, which I've just remembered. Sorry, I should have noted this down and spoken about it earlier. But the popper joggers things, I got bought. It must have been 1998, I guess, or 7, from Leeks in Melksham.
Oh yeah, Leeks.
Yeah. So I had a mustard-coloured Nike T-shirt and matching popper joggers, if we're going to call them that, which I proudly wore to a school disco, a primary school disco, not so long after I got them, where I believe I sang "No Matter What" by Boyzone, if I remember correctly. There we are.
What? It's such a shame that the camera phone was invented so much after that.
I know. I could do a bit for you now if you like. Would you like?
I was just going to say, you need to do a rendition of that.
I don't think anybody would like that. I don't think that's what people listen to this for. But there we are. You have to imagine it.
Mustard, strong colour for a
man. I know.
Okay. Sarah got in touch as well, and she pointed out the brand. I think it's a brand rather than a shop. Punky Fish. Does anyone remember Punky Fish?
Yes.
Loads and loads of zips on everything. Like just multiple zips going across chests and up and down. So that's a very 90s brand.
Mm-hmm.
Then Craig Fletcher said 90s fashion is certainly not his strongest subject, but all he can think of is the the music video for Hit or Miss by Newfound Glory, which is a great tune and a great video. It was released in 1999. And he says everything that was sort of worn in that video represents what he thinks of as being his cool period for the 90s. So gel spiky hair, 3/4 length shorts, and sort of anything that surfers would wear in Nuki. And those sort of wraparound shades as well that he was wearing until quite recently, which I can confirm is true. So yeah, that sort of late 90s pop punk look, which I personally have a lot of love for. Is a very, we haven't really touched on that sort of 90s American rock music fashion too much, apart from the sort of hoodies, but like the skater look and stuff with new metal and pop punk. There's lots of crossover there with like the tube socks and the dickies and the sort of ringer tees and stuff like that. So that was a cool look. I was on board with that very much so. Cool. Well, I think that wraps up all my correspondence. So thank you, Kate, for coming on and giving us your expert knowledge and your great memories of what is a fascinating subject. And it's about time we did something on fashion and makeup. So we're glad to have you on, and so many memories, things that I completely forgotten that just came flooding back when you said them. So thank you so much for doing that.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Cool.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's. I think it's fair to say that when Alex and I do these episodes, it's normally on a subject that we both have a degree of knowledge on, and this is probably the first one where we've stepped quite far outside of our comfort zone. So to have somebody with your knowledge and experience come in and guide us through, it's been an education as well as entertaining. So yeah, no, thanks very much, and I hope you can come back on again soon.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, that was great. It was amazing to have someone with some knowledge outside of our usual remit, and made me really brought back some memories, some good, some bad.
Absolutely, yeah. I hadn't thought about popper trousers for about 25 years, so there we are. And also, obviously, nice to get Daryl Sutch a mention as well.
So yeah, if anyone has any thoughts on anything that's been talked about here, and any other 90s fashion memories, any disasters, any things that people are still proud of or want to bring back, just let us know on the usual channels. On Twitter, we are at allright90s. You can email us on allright90s@gmail.com. We're on facebook.com/allright90s. All of those are all letters, no numbers. But then on Instagram, we are allright.90s.podcast. And yes, you can search for us on any of those things if you can't remember those specific names, but we'd love to hear from you. Stu, what's coming up in the next episode?
We're stepping back into the sporting arena next time, Greenie, and we are going to be discussing one of Wiltshire football's greatest days. It did happen in 2000, but the run towards this day started in 1999, so I think we can allow it. We're going to be discussing Chippenham Town's run to the FA Vase final, and I'm very pleased to say that we've got the captain of that side, Lee Burns, joining us. So it should be a great episode as we reminisce about that entire cup run.
Yes, so I'm looking forward to that. Love a bit of grassroots football.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for listening, everyone, and we hope you put your wraparound sunglasses on, your Reebok poppers, and go for a nice walk in the 90s sunshine. And we'll speak to you soon on the next episode. Goodbye.
Just make sure you don't fall off of your buffalo shoes. Bye for now.